Recording in progress.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Historic Review Board meeting for September 23rd, 2025. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order and call roll.
Board Member Edgar.
Here.
Board Member Green.
Here.
Board Member Fulkerson.
Here.
Board Member Lauren.
Here.
And Chair Powell.
Here. Thank you very much. Our first item here is public comments. Do we have any public comments? It appears we might. I think we do.
Oh, we do have one comment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was telling Melissa how to
That's
do.
okay, I understand.
We have one comment. Wait.
Thank you very much. All right, Denise McGriff, here with the National Trust Advisory. Oh, good.
Good evening, and thank you. So many of you know that I wear a lot of different hats. So tonight I'm here with my hat on for the National Trust. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, but I am one of the 3 advisors that represent the state of Oregon for the board of trustees. So it's the hierarchy is the staff, the executive director, there's a board of trustees, and then there is a board of advisors, which I have been a member of since about 2009. And basically what we do is we are the boots on the ground, and we let the national organization know about things that are going on in our state or maybe in our city. So to give you an example is that when the Willamette Falls locks were threatened with closure, the National Trust took it on and added it to its 11 most endangered list. And they also, with that, created a program which doesn't exist anymore called National Treasures. And so the Veterans Memorial Coliseum and the Willamette Falls locks became national treasures, which meant that the trust would put in financial resources. So they hired, and they used one of their trust attorneys. At that time, we had a staff person that was based in Oregon that they were working on the project with the trust and the Corps and citizens to see about what we could do to keep the locks from closing, and as you know, it did. But the good news is that the state of Oregon created an authority to allow for the locks to be legally transferred from the Corps of Engineers to the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. And I happen to be a member of that authority based on my experience since 2010 with working on the locks project. There are many other people in the community that were also working on the locks project as well. The Veterans Memorial Coliseum didn't quite have the same cachet, but it also made the 11 most endangered, and we were working with the city of Portland to make sure that there was a preservation plan in place and that they would go back to the original programming. So this year, one of the 11 most endangered that was nominated is the Oregon Caves Chateau down in the Grants Pass area. It is in dire straits. As you know, the National Park Service has had their budget cut and cut and cut. So that is our Southern Oregon person who is down that way will probably be working on it more than I. But in the past, what I have done with staff is taken sort of a road show around Central Oregon to meet with different communities about their historic preservation programs. We respond to any inquiries about things that the trust might be able to do in local communities. So that's in a nutshell kind of what I do as a trust representative. And so the other reason why I'm here is that we just had our annual conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as I called it, the other Milwaukee, because they didn't know too much about our Milwaukee, but I told them about it. And they sent home a packet of information with me, and they also said, you have a historic review board in your town, don't you? We're sending you home with a pile of swag. So I have some swag for each of you that I will give you before I leave. But the conference was centered upon economic development and historic preservation. The city of Milwaukee, which is about 500,000, but doesn't seem like it. It seemed very small to me in terms of homey. Not homey like us, but very homey. It didn't. We were based downtown in a historic hotel, and we were sent around to different places to observe what they were doing, to question what they were doing, ask what they were doing. A couple of the field trips that I took on this particular conference, instead of being in a lot of meetings that I was also in, was we were able to go out to the Kohler complex and the fixture people. Well, they have a whole complex. It was created as sort of a utopian village. So they provided housing for their workers. They had a school set up. I mean, it was pretty amazing. And this was one of the founder's sons who had done this. And now they're in, not only do they still have the village where the housing was, but some of their employees live there. They have the ceramic part, they have the foundry. They now own the old dormitory where the workers used to live is now a hotel, and they own a golf course. I mean, the place is huge. They just took us all over the place in that. And just see what the Kohler Foundation has done. It wasn't in the incorporated area of Milwaukee, but it's in Sheboygan, which is interesting, they're kind of right on the edge of Sheboygan. They were all shocked that I know how to pronounce it, so. That was interesting. We also got to see the Pabst Mansion, which we know about it's Beer City over there. Interestingly enough, craft beer was not quite as prominent as it is here. And that was interesting to me as well. They have Schlitz and Miller and Pabst, and it was like, all the stuff that comes in cans. So it was interesting. Some of the meetings, things that I attended were how to come up with new ways to get people interested in historic preservation, because, they hear the term and sometimes they get all freaked out about it. Obviously, we don't, but there are different ways that we can do that. They talked about working with Native American governments, which was interesting since we have that situation right here in our community. And then I think the other one that I went to had to do with how to help nonprofits who want to do major restoration projects or major rehab projects. That was in the National Trust Investment Corporation was leading that one. So it was pretty interesting. So I just wanted to come today. I have some, like I said, I have some swag for you that I would like to give you that they sent home with me. And they have pens and little notebooks. Next year's conference is going to be in Washington, D.C. I don't know the dates yet, and I kind of asked the question of staff that, should we really be going to DC? And the comment back was, we need to show up. And I said, okay. So thank you very much. If you ever have any questions, I think most of you know how to reach me. If not, I can always make sure you get my National Trust card, not my city card, which has different things on it. So anyway, thank you for letting me come and tell you about what's going on. And as soon as I get some of those dates, I think Main Street is coming up next year. It's going to be in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I believe it's going to be like in April. So I was made aware of that. I think our downtown association manager will probably be attending that. I probably will not be attending Main Street, but I probably will be going to the Trust Conference. And I think we should check into the city to see if they have any money in a budget for at least one of the members to come. So
yeah, it's a good idea. I think that we need to do more of that. It really expands our horizon. And
exactly.
I appreciate your report. I think that's wonderful, and I do appreciate it. We talked about this long ago in Neighborhoods USA too. You remember
yes. That organization kind of feels like a little bit.
That's another wonderful project that could be done. But anyway, thank you for the report.
Thank you. Anyway, so I'll just come up and give you these. They're little notebooks that are from the conference that you can use for scribbling or whatever.
Did you stay in the Feister Hotel?
We stayed what?
In the Feister Hotel?
To be honest with you, I never really knew what the name of the hotel is. It's now a Hilton Hotel.
Oh,
It's
okay.
right on Wisconsin and Fifth,
Thank you.
which was really interesting.
I'm pretty familiar with the city,
It was
so
gorgeous.
yeah.
Of course, it was under construction. We were going around scaffolding, which was, you get out the elevator, oh, wow, there's scaffold here today. So it was really interesting.
I've been to the Pass Forward conference a couple times, and they're always super informative, and they're great because they shape it around the city that you're in too, so they make sure to highlight some of the preservation techniques of the cities.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes, now that a decision appears to have been made on the courthouse by the county.
Okay, I still have my National Trust hat on, so I'm not
Okay.
going to answer the question on the other one. Yes.
My understanding is that the State Historic Preservation Office had identified characteristics or things that are associated with the courthouse that should be saved.
I haven't actually seen
And
all of
as
that
part
yet.
of reuse.
They have to go through a 106 review because the building is eligible for the National Register. The state, the county will, or the developer,
Okay.
whoever, somebody has to do it.
So is there any process that will be employed to try to make sure that adequate preservation of those items and oversight?
I think that the 106 review will identify, Julia, correct me if I'm going off but my understanding is that during the 106 review, that they will have to identify some of those character defining features that need to be, preserved. There's been a discussion about doors. All those doors in there are pretty much original. The thing that's interesting about it is that I'm concerned about the fact that it's going to end up maybe in a landfill. I probably would like to suggest to the developer that he could carefully dismantle some of the bricks because people would like those. We got some from the library on the back wall that was taken out, and so there were commemorative bricks that were given. But all of the material in that building, with the exception of the bricks, which came from a brickyard in Yamhill County, all of the other materials came from Clackamas County. That was a requirement of the WPA at the time for the contract for the courthouse. They had to employ all local people. They had to bring all of the timber and any other material that was available in Clackamas County to put into that building. And the only thing that we didn't have here, we didn't have a brickyard, but they did get the bricks from Yamhill County. So it's embodied energy that came from Clackamas County. Workers from Clackamas County put their, blood, sweat, and tears into the building of the building. And it's just, like I want to say, its ambiance is all Clackamas County.
Yeah.
It
There's
just
a lot of
seems,
old growth in that building as well.
just seems to me that there's a lot more there than was inventoried that could be.
Again, the 106 review will they will have to identify those items.
Right. So they
Even-
hire someone like me
Yeah.
to come in and you do a big, you document the site, you do a big evaluation, a big report. It's called typically like a recommendation for eligibility. It sounds like it's eligible. So then you would do a finding of effect report, which says, it basically spells out how whatever they're doing is going to impact, hopefully not adversely impact the structure. And then there'll be like a recommendation section, a mitigation section. So they'll hopefully be able to say, we would prefer you keep the doors, like you said, or, whatever.
It's things like there's glass in that building that,
The windows are, pretty much intact. They have they're one over one double hung. There's just so many elements of the building. I gave a downtown tour in August, and I told the folks who came on the tour, I said, this might, I don't know when the demo is going to happen, but I said, I'm going to tell you everything I can about the building so you can memorialize it. We did have, some of you were here, we had the Liberty Theater, which we tried very, very hard to save. And, I'm not putting blame on anybody, but it's the second building that the county has owned that is going to go down. So I think it's imperative on us to try to get a message out to the Downtown Oregon City Association that we need to do more designation. We only have one designated building downtown, and it is the Petzold building. That is it.
I agree.
Is that correct?
Yep.
But there are others that are, the McCall building is eligible, the Weinhardt building is eligible. There are others further down, the old Pacific Telephone building is eligible to be on the local inventory.
Well, I was saying, I love that conference, the Pass Forward conference. I've been to the one in, they switch cities every time.
Yes.
But I've been to the one in New Orleans and the one in Indianapolis. And
we probably passed, I was at Indianapolis.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't able to go last year to New Orleans, which was last year's conference.
Yeah.
So, and then we had
I was hoping to go to this year's.
we had a
but
big gap because of COVID, so we were supposed
Right.
to go to Miami twice, and it just didn't happen.
That would have been so fun.
I know where it was, I saw all the tours, it was Art Deco, like
Right.
24/7.
All the mid-century stuff in Miami would have been really neat. But yeah, it's great that you got to go. And I was saying it's really cool because they shape all the, not all of them, but most of the preservation topics regionally.
Yes.
It'd be cool to bring that conference somewhere nearby.
The last time it was in our area was in 2005. It was in
okay.
Portland, and then we had one in Spokane in 2011. They claim that Denver was the West, and I thought, boy, you guys don't know your geography, do you? It's
Yeah.
sort of the West, but it's not the West. So it's interesting that we had Midwest, and now we're going east again, and
Right.
then it was New Orleans, and now we're going east again. So I don't know when we're
I feel
going
like
to
there
get
was
out
one
this
in
way.
San Francisco.
Yeah,
not
San
too
Francisco
recently.
was 2010 or 9.
Okay,
I have a whole list of them, so I know which ones I went to.
yeah. Oh,
Great.
man, well.
Any other questions regarding this?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Denise.
Thank you. I'm
Appreciate
on
you.
to my next meeting. So I'm going to take that hat off now, have a different hat to put on for the other meeting.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next, public hearings. We did have a public hearing, GLUA 25-39 and HR 25-11 regarding 1403 Jackson Street, but that has been withdrawn by the applicant. So we will move on to the next item, which is item 4, discussion on compatible change, new construction review in historic districts, the policy 13 draft review.
All right, thank you, Chair Powell. As you recall, in August, both Board Member Edgar and Chair Powell went to the City Commission to present the compatible change policy document that this board created with the help of our consultant and staff. And the City Commission gave direction for staff to move forward on the legislative process to implement that policy direction. And what that means to the board is this fall, we are going to work on code red lines that implement that policy document, as well as the draft policy for new detached dwelling units, policy 13. And then there may be a small change to the policy related to accessory buildings. So remember, we upped the square footage for garage. There'll be a future meeting. So the goal tonight is really, we're taking that policy memo and kind of chunking out the deliverables over the next couple months, going through the red lines, going through the draft HRB policies. There'll be a kind of a packet where the board is ready to recommend kind of the implementation documents. We'll head back to the City Commission one more time, present them, and then we'll move forward with legislative hearings so that we mail out a postcard to everybody in the city with a planning commission date. We present the red lines and make our presentation on the compatible change. The planning commission won't be formally adopting the HRB policies. We'll just have that as background information. And then the planning commission would make a recommendation to the city commission, who would approve the red lines and then kind of give approval of the HRB policy, which kind of happens outside the legislative land use process, because it's a policy that the board can adopt, but we like the city commission concurrence on any of our HRB policies. So that process will kind of take us through to spring 2026. So there's not a timeline of how many months it'll take to have a complete document of recommended code revisions and policy documents. It's probably going to be more than 2. My thinking is it may take the September, October, November meetings, and maybe we'll work. If we can get to a good package by the end of the November meeting, we can look for a December or January work session with the city commission and then move forward. But of course, if the board needs more time, we can, move those dates based on your want to come back and keep reviewing the red lines. So tonight what we have is I'd like just to kind of go over what really was implementation of the policy for a detached structure that is less than 500 square feet, 500 square feet or less, and no higher than 15 feet, as kind of those are that base information that you approved in your policy document. But now this is the proof is in the pudding part. This is all the details of what kind of clear and objective project would you like to see be allowed at the staff level through the building permit. So there could be 10 different options of what would be potentially a compatible development, but that's a 15-page HRB policy. So we're trying to choose a design type that is automatically approved. If you do this design type, it's a kind of a pretty standard compatible infill project. Now remember, we're not, because we see these as almost like standalone new homes, they don't necessarily need to match the resource because these are non-designated resource. So really is more of a kind of a vernacular infill small dwelling unit is kind of how this policy is written. If you have a project that is still compatible but doesn't just quite meet the HRB policy, you can come from the board and get it approved. But we're providing people an easy path, in a sense, almost like those pre-approved design plans. And so that is the thought process of how we got to the elements. So let me know how you want to do it. We could go kind of element by element and get your comments. I could read through all of them and we can go back and have a discussion, kind of leave it to the board how you want to go through this 2-page document and provide your recommendations for any revision. I will say, I was waiting for any board direction, and then after tonight's meeting, I'm going to meet with Melissa and Jude, who talk to folks every day on the phone about HRB policies, and they'll be able to kind of provide input on wording or maybe a recommendation. This isn't unclear, or have you thought about this? But I was waiting to kind of get your clear direction first before I brought their keen eye on it, and we can give you their feedback next month. So let me know, do you want me to take it line by line, read it first, however makes sense to you?
Okay. Actually, I thought it was very well written. It covers all of the most of the things we talked about. The confusing part for me is trying to get a building plan, a single type thing. That's going to be an interesting challenge, because there's going to be so many different opportunities. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we can start there. You can kind of look at you can't do 2-story typically because you're going to be stuck with that height issue, right? So even a story and a half might not make it.
Yeah, either you're probably going to be a story and a half. What 15 feet gives you is probably like, if you put dormers in, you could have a little teeny bedroom or maybe a loft kind of sleeping arrangement. Right. But for the most part, the 500 square feet is going to be a 1-bedroom apartment layout.
Yeah, basically.
With maybe a little bonus storage lofty area above.
And is the intent of that to just kind of make an example?
Yeah, I mean, the intent is people are scared of going in front of the historic review. I'll kind of wind it back, like why we are creating this to begin with. People are going in front of the historic review board as a barrier. And if we want to encourage compatible dwelling units in McLaughlin, we need to provide a carrot, right? So the historic review board is considered, people think of it as a stick. And we say, well, here's a carrot, you don't have to even go in a hearing. You can work directly with staff. You can put your plans together and you can go get your building permit and you can build this new dwelling unit that you're allowed, by your zoning. So it's kind of we were trying to give the path of easy development. And so, which I always think is, you could come to the board and actually approve a much denser or, bigger development, but we are going through a hearing, we're looking at compatibility, we're looking at what's next door, we're doing a lot more discretionary analysis. So through a public hearing, you might be able to get a little bit bigger development, but there's more discretionary review. So this way we know when people do detached duplex infills or an ADU, we know it's going to be generally compatible with the size and massing because we've created this policy that allows that. But because of that, because we have to be really clear and objective, we can't give people tons of options through the building permit process of, so there could be a great infill that would be fantastic that may just not fit this policy, and people are just gonna have to go to the board for that
Yeah.
review. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. So we have to kind of choose an approach that we know would be acceptable really almost in any non-designated infill lot in McLaughlin.
Chair?
Go ahead.
I have significant concern that we have family in southeast Portland in some of the eclectic older neighborhoods, and there gets to be an open lot. And it's the beautiful neighborhoods, and then they build something right next to it. And it's not a historic district, but boy, does it detract. And you see this happening, and it's, yeah, it's Portland, but I just think about us having standards, you know, where some degree of design standards, and so as that somebody from outside comes in without any appreciation of Oregon City and its history and its designs and neighborhoods and stuff, and builds in a vacant lot, and do we have any standards really to bring reality, my perception of reality, I'm sorry, but of something that doesn't detract from the neighborhood?
Well, to that point, I think as we read through this, you'll see, I mean, there's pretty definitive rules here, right? About the gable, the roof, the type of windows you can use, the type of siding you can use. I mean, so that's in there, right?
Yeah, I've read it, that, but I'm still.
That's not, in your estimation, that's not enough.
It's just kind of like, I've seen bad stuff happening, and I want to make sure that, at least in my perception, what I see that is not a positive element to that neighborhood.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, but even on non-designated properties, if somebody wants to build a detached ADU, and it did not fall within these parameters, so they come before the board, the design guidelines still apply, do they not?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we still have the whole packet of historic design guidelines that would apply, that would govern our discussions for projects that would come before the board. But this path is just another piece of the compatible change for.
It's ADUs. It's kind of that mindset.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's basically a simplified path for applicants that are not on designated properties, can come in and can get an over-the-counter approval and not need to go through,
Yeah, but we want to keep costs in line too.
yes.
Sure.
Well, and they can keep it smaller and lesser than this. I mean, this would be, you might say, outside parameters of what they could do with a staff approval, which I think is certainly a nice balance to accommodate the demand and for people to build simple buildings and smaller buildings. I mean, the intent is with these to be not overpowering and so forth. Anything larger is going to come before us.
Restore Oregon had a manual for historic properties for people to look at for building in historic districts. And one of the secrets, I think, of that is pictures that show designs and imply a design view of something going in. And I think that we need to make sure that we adequately back up some of what we're talking about with pictures.
So my response straddles 2 agenda items. One thing that the board could look at, and I think if you want a couple visual representations of how this policy could be implemented, during the next CLG grant, we can ask to potentially pay for illustrative drawings by a consultant. We would be adopting this policy probably before, but we would give the adopted policy to a consultant who would draw up, not plans, but like illustrated sketches of here's examples of things that could meet it.
Pre-approved.
Yeah, they're not construction plans, but they're, elevation sketches and maybe some, just floor plans so people can see, oh yeah, you can get a 1-bedroom, into that. So that's something potentially that the CLG grant could pay for that you may want to look, but it would be, in a sense, you're further implementing an adopted policy. Though I do want to remind everybody, these are clear and objective, so we don't want to have, unless it's an example that absolutely implements this, this is not a form-based code, there's no discretion, when you review for building permit, it is a checkbox, Are your windows this? Do you do this? So I do worry about providing things in the document that imply that there's discretion. Like you either meet it or you don't, but I can see a future grant project maybe producing a informational sheet.
Just before the meeting, I had envisioned potentially building a single-car garage next to where I have no garage, effectively in my property. And, but one of the key things is having a roof pitch and to put solar panels on it. So I have an 1880 house and I'm not going to put solar panels on my house. So what if someone is looking at in my case, like a garage, and I want to have the pitch of the roof ideal for getting the greatest potential from solar, that was one of the issues, and to me, I felt like that maybe 18 feet would be better than 15 feet, so as that I can get a little bit higher pitch to squeeze another row solar panels.
The 15 feet is a midpoint measurement. It's not it's not to the peak.
Okay, it's
midpoint measurement from the top of the peak to the bottom of the eaves. That's where they measure, correct?
Yeah, and I think with Board Member Egger, you're in the Biennium National Register District, and your infill garage could probably be a slightly taller peak because you have a taller peak house. This really is, there's a recommendation of 6 to 812, and we didn't put in a 1012 or a 1212, just because this is supposed to be kind of the generic infill design that would fit with any architectural style in the McLaughlin district. And if you said I really want a little bit steeper roof, come into the board. The idea is we're trying to find a generic box, that can fit through any, be it if the main house was a Queen Anne or a vernacular or a bungalow, it could fit in any of those as the accessory building,
Well,
the accessory dwelling unit.
And that is, the commission did ask for photos or, drawings or pictures so they could, because they, at least I know the mayor did, for one, to ask specifically about that because it's very easy to look at a picture and go, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And my question is, when I read this, I looked at it and I said, boy, it'd be great if we could just have somebody read through this and then draw,
Yeah, and I can't do that. But if anybody on the board has the design skill, that'd be great. Or we go and wait and have the pictures as a secondary implementation measure, but it probably wouldn't be till next year. I wouldn't get the grant signed till the fall of '26.
Well, I even think having some of the, I mean, please stop me if I'm wrong in this, but when I worked with the city of Louisville, people would call in all the time and they would be like, well, we don't know exactly, even though it spells out this amount of inch of hardy board, you know, what does the hardy board look like? And so we would give them images or walk them through sort of that process, material by material, if they needed it, you know, or make suggestions. And that's free guidance. It's basically free architectural consulting that they're getting from the city. So do you all, I mean, I'm sure you do some of that just
Yeah,
by
we do some of
speaking
that. I
with
think
them.
what we don't have staff money this fall and winter is to create a new, like, addendum to this policy with really bespoke drawings that absolutely
Right.
implement the writing. So that, we could do that with a future grant.
But I guess you wouldn't always need that, I guess is what I'm saying, because you could,
well-
they might just have questions on 2 or 3 of these and not
Yeah.
a full layout scheme.
Sure,
you know.
there is something nice about when people don't know how to design something and they have something pretty in their face.
Totally,
That they
yeah.
design the pretty thing.
Yeah.
So I think there is value.
No, I definitely think there's
Yeah.
value in it. I'm just saying, if we don't have the money, you might already be providing some of those services by default, you know, and.
Right, and I'm thinking if we have one, you know, and for this process, we have one drawing that is a generic, something, like you just said, something that will meet all requirements, that can be passed over at the staff level. I think that would be great for this situation. Down the road,
I think so, too.
as things start to expand, if they do, then we may have to look at doing an addendum.
It's possible. I think that, my opinion is that we're playing to the basest of what's going on here is that no one's building these buildings because they think, oh, I'm going to put an ADU in my yard and I'm going to figure out how to build it. 99.9% of the people that are going to be pulling off a project are working with a design team, working with an architect, working with a builder. This sheet has the information in it by itself that anybody in the trade professions can read clearly, coherently, cogently, and be able to suss out the information that's needed. The idea, which is a great idea, the idea of having pictures and these reference points and everything for people is great. It's an added value to get people on the front end to say, oh, I can do this and I get it. But the reality of building is that Jim John's not coming out here to build this building. This
I
is somebody that
concur.
totally understands everything that's in this.
Agreed.
I was thinking the same thing.
And we're not gonna have to provide that added handhold.
Yeah.
And again, if there's any, qualms about, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we change this? Can we do, that's what we're here for.
Right.
But this has to be in place so that we can get that movement going forward where people do have that path to just be able to, off the shelf, get a box of cereal and go home and eat it. And we don't need to interfere and say, well, we're going to use almond milk instead of whole milk. We don't need to
Right.
be involved
Well,
in every step of that.
and one of the things I'm not interested in is having, somebody come in, having a house on the back of a trailer,
Oh, very much
and
so.
lift it in and drop it in and say,
Or having
okay.
monotony in all these builds either,
Yeah.
especially in a place where monotony isn't the original fabric of the
Well,
neighborhood.
that is true.
And that's a
If we have a
danger.
design, then everyone goes, I'll build that, I'll
Right.
build that.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
danger of
Because
providing these documents.
They probably will.
Yeah. Say, oh, look, we built the thing
Right,
that
and
you guys
it's
showed us.
approved and it's fast tracked
We
and
did it.
it's, and so I think you have to be, it's a double-edged sword a little bit,
Well,
But-
and I don't know that we necessarily need to recommend it, but to have it on a picture on the document itself, I don't see the problem with that. I think it kind of gives somebody an idea. Doesn't mean you have to build this, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the important things here too is we need affordable roofs over people's heads and minimal living, and the need of 50% of the people living in Clackamas County, of the working people, can't afford a roof over their head and food on the table. That's figures now available with Clackamas County, and I'm on the Community Action Board, and I see them. So the numbers of people that are in need are just so severe. And the idea of being able to have a small ADU or a small house that, that would be affordable for people in need
And
is really
affordability
big time.
is a crazy thing to think about, right? Look at Lake Oswego and First Edition, where up on D and Fifth, they're building these affordable homes. They're talking about listing them for $900,000 a piece, and they're 1,600 square foot boxes that are all, I think there's probably 30 of them in a 2-block area.
Well, that is affordable.
But, you know, it's like, so you start looking at this stuff and the affordability factor,
Yeah,
and
and-
it's wild.
The affordability, the capital A, affordability is always a misnomer with new construction. You can almost never make new construction quote unquote affordable unless it's subsidized, right?
Yeah.
But what new construction does is it provides more dwelling units, then that helps older, naturally occurring affordable housing. So that's older structures that have, you know, that are naturally affordable because they are kind of lower on the rung of housing. They've had many tenants, they've, you know, amortized their life, they're more naturally occurring. And so sometimes more is more, right? If you're never going to get people to move into an affordable unit when it's new construction unless it's subsidized.
Well-
But folks who own their property, so they own the land, they might be able to get, you know, the construction done. Nowadays, with our middle housing land division options, which this can be, these could be sold as separate units, folks can get the design approved and then sell the land and the approval, and somebody else can build it. So there are ways for folks, in a sense, to control the design, but then have people buy the project and they don't have to spend the money, and it's, you know, they get the value out of the land they're giving. So there are opportunities for folks who own their land to get value out of it without having to, or have the burden to front all the development costs, which nobody can do that unless you're a for-profit developer. You don't have that capital sitting around, you know, to do the whole development. So there are opportunities, but I just want to remind everybody, new construction is rarely ever capital A affordable unless subsidized.
Well, and reality is, most of the people that are going to take advantage of this are, as infill, they're probably building it for a family member, or or they may be building it as for a rental, or something like that. They won't be building it for renting out on B&Bs.
Well, and in Oregon City, we don't allow short-term rental. It's 30 days or more, or you can go through the conditional use process, and B&Bs can go through a conditional use. And so it's either conditional use or anything 30 days or more. That is how Oregon City works for rentals.
Well, senior housing for seniors now is an emergency, just for seniors. So there are so many seniors are being priced out of their ability to have a house. So it's, at little ADU like this can be just God-saving type of.
So one thing I did not have on this draft proposal, and I'm always thinking, how could it all go sideways and wrong? Like, how could someone develop something and they check all the boxes and yet it's not what we want? One thing that's not in here is a minimum number of windows per elevation. So that is something to think about. You know, do we want to mandate to just make sure people aren't doing like window, even though they're the exact windows that we want?
That's
They don't have
really-
enough.
That's really
I don't know.
important, yeah.
There must be a balance, a Goldilocks between being too prescriptive about windows, but also, and having some play around, but also being silent. We might get stuck with someone who, does not put enough windows in, even though they're the perfect dimension and, you know, design of them.
Could we use some of the nomenclature we already have that just, you know, basically copy it over and, I
We
mean,
could do a certain linear percentage, like windows, and I can, between now and next time we meet, I can kind of take a look, like windows on the front elevation should be at least X percentage of linear feet, sides should be, Y, and then the rear, so
Yeah, I
and so.
think
So we
that'd
could
be-
do it a linear.
Does
that
that
way.
exist already? I mean,
That exists in our site plan design review for commercial, so we're used to doing linear.
Okay.
And we call, that's linear at pedestrian eye level and not, clear story windows.
Yeah, so I think it would, I guess commercial and residential are two completely different beasts, but that makes sense to remain consistent with some of that.
Yeah, and we do,
verbiage and-
for new construction, just our subdivision new construction, we use linear feet as well.
Okay. Yeah,
But we can just decide what the percentage is. Our percentages may be different than, a new house in a suburban
that's a
tract.
good point, because we talked about design of windows, but we didn't talk about number, so. Another thing, and maybe I'm missing this, and maybe this is totally non-relevant, but the deck, should we talk about staining or left? I know we said no pressure treated wood shall be visible.
We approved use of ASAC, composite materials,
Yeah.
things like that, so pressure treated would be any, that allows cedar, that allows epay, that allows, we can do all sorts of things, we just can't have, pressure treated wood visible, so you could,
Are you looking at that it's more like painted or porch stained? Is that where?
Yeah, just
where
maybe
it's a
like an
natural stain?
eyesore if it's just left untreated, and
Just
it's
say it can't-
visible, does that cover? I'm thinking, because we talked about like a side deck.
Sure, and that's a really good question. For new construction, for front porches, we've often said that they must be painted or paint stained just to ensure that they survive. And
Right.
oftentimes, your new construction, it's not that a natural wood stain is wrong, it's just sometimes it's not as compatible when you're thinking like in a new construction format. So we have as a default said that you should have your porches painted or paint stained because we kind of want them to be better integrated in.
Right.
But these are much smaller. This isn't like a big new house. So does it matter as much if someone chooses to do a wood stain
Right.
rather
And
than a?
I'm not even proposing like,
Okay.
like a color or a stain or anything
Okay.
like that as much as I am just like the untreated wood left in that state. Yeah, and sometimes there's like lettering on the side of it and, and that
So
kind of
just
stuff.
like
And
all
so
exposed siding and wood shall be
yeah.
painted or
painted,
stained or.
painted, paint stained or stained.
Because you have to have the
Right.
verbiage that if there's no confusion, that's like, well, what am I gonna paint my ASAC
Right.
deck,
Right, if it comes that color, so
She'll
how
be
do you?
finished. She'll be finished.
Should be finished, something
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
because that's finished, right? I mean, that's what they call it, finished.
All siding and,
Because if it were me, and I was building a little ADU, I'm thinking about costs. I'm thinking about, I'm probably not going to do like an expensive Trex decking on the side of my, I'm going to do,
cedar.
yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna put down cedar. But even then, it could silver out and be amazing, so.
Right, that's, yeah.
Or they could just put down pine boards and it would look terrible
Terrible in a
in
week.
no time.
Yeah.
Terrible.
But to speak to
Yeah.
longevity, even in the rain and everything around here, it
so
might be.
I've put an item to make a comment about exterior materials being finished and like massage what I'm hearing from everybody. Like clearly, you're not going to paint a Trex material, but the
Are we
wood.
allowed to assume that? Are we-
I'll try to.
We'll deal with it on staff
Oh,
level.
okay.
Do I have to paint this?
Well, while we're talking about the decks,
Well, one aspect.
Oh, go ahead.
The windows that may turn out to be a little bit of a clinker from time to time is with the accessory buildings, sometimes somewhat close to the other residence, you need a firewall, and that means no windows. So it won't be uncommon for like one wall to not be able to accommodate windows.
Well, I
So-
think that's a perfect example. That should come up to the board. right?
What's that?
That's a perfect example of a project that needs to come up to the board. So if we have minimum linear amount of windows on the side elevations, and you
Okay.
can't accommodate that because you're just squeezed, trying to just Lego, piece your set in, then you can come to the board and kind of explain why I can't do this, and this is how I'm
Okay.
mitigating it. And that's, to me, that's a discretionary analysis that we want to let you get your dwelling unit. We understand you're constrained by all these, but where the house is and where the lot is and what you want to do. And
Yep.
let's look at how you're mitigating your impact compared to this, which is, I think, saying there's enough distance between you and the house because you're required to put in a certain percentage of windows on both side elevations.
Yeah, so I picked up on your comment about the 6 to 8, 12. I kind of honestly figured that there may be value in allowing a little steeper pitch, because if there's a loft scenario, generally you have a steeper pitch. What does the rest of the board think about that?
Come to the board. I mean,
Well, you can come to the board. I mean, this is basically bracketing this streamlined process. Would it be reasonable to move it up to 10, 12? I mean, you're saying that basically more generic styles in the McLaughlin district, you're trying to match that, or?
is there a way for us to do a percentage of roof pitches throughout the district so that we can see?
Yeah, it's really per design style. So, your vernaculars are more of your 10, 12, 12, 12.
Yeah.
Your Queen Anne's are more 8, 12 to 10, 12, and your bungalows are more 6 to 8. So you can, I wouldn't recommend going up to 12, 12 for McLaughlin. That doesn't make sense. But, it is reasonable. But just so you know, if you're going 10, 12, people might be more inclined to put dormers in if we allow dormers.
That's
If I
what I
was,
do,
if in the immediate area, like up and down the street where something is going in, if they are on average 10, 12, or 12, 12, could be, like in Kenema, 12, 12 was common. But I think 8 or 10, 12 should be an option.
And of course, if it's something that came to the board, we would take those factors into
Yeah.
consideration. But
I
this
think
process is
It's a streamlined
a
one.
streamlined one, so what's
I-
reason?
I can go and find 2 roof pitches for you next month and be like, this is 10, 12, this is 8, 12. You can start thinking about,
Probably worth conversation. I mean,
Well, it
Yeah.
might be worth it. I want to try, the whole idea of this is I'm trying to make this so this it can be gotten through staff pretty easily and make it cost effective and all that. And if we can get it to the point where it's a 8, 12 and we aren't putting in dormers, that's the thing that I'm worried about. The dormer's fine, but when you're putting in a second story, it just doesn't make sense to me to put in second stories.
Well, it wouldn't be a second story. I mean, we're still constrained with the 15-foot height.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it'd
but
be
if you're 10, 12 and you have dormers, you might be able to stick up a little room up there. So,
I would think you'd want a dormer with like
Yeah,
a
we
little
can certainly accommodate
loft
a loft with a
space
dormer.
yeah.
But,
On 10, 12, or 8, 12?
Having looked at tiny houses and trying to envision how we could create a lot of tiny houses for people in efficient living, I think that having a small footprint, let's say it's under 500 square feet, but it's 1.5 stories with a dormer, is a reasonable option for creating a lot of usable living space on a minimal footprint. And I think that's is something that should be considered.
Yeah, and this would accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
With
Yeah.
that 15-foot height and dormers, so.
It's a 1.5 story, and all
Yeah.
we're trying to do is have
Yeah.
potentially a
Get
loft
some
bedroom
loft,
upstairs
sure.
and as much living space on the common floor.
If we were back east, we'd put barn roofs on everything. It'd be great. Tons of space.
So what am I hearing for roof pitch? Is there a consensus, or do you want me to come back and show more options?
I would love to see 10.
I would be in favor of 612 to 1012 myself. Gives it a little bit more option. Then one question on
Well,
the.
I haven't heard from everybody yet.
Go
I
ahead.
think I defer to you to whatever is architecturally appropriate. And, at least staying within some sort of realm there. You
I mean,
said,
to me, 812 is kind of the mean, and then 6 is one lower and 10 is one up. And so are we okay with all three options?
Well, I would advocate for 8 being, and if they want to go higher, then would they come to the board? I mean, it seems to me, we're trying to make this efficient, get it in, get it through, and get people into these houses, right? And I don't know, it seems like we can get by with that at 8. I think that's great. And if we want to go bigger, 10 or 12, then come before the board and talk it through.
To come before the board is $1,000.
because I'm not familiar with the difference in cost, is there a difference in cost in the pitch?
Not the pitch, but the process. So new construction does have a historic review board fee. It's a percentage, and sometimes it can be up to $1,000.
I did know that, but like the changing the pitch doesn't add or subtract any cost either. Is
On
there a
the
most?
city's end.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just more of looking at an architectural style and roof pitch that would kind of be compatible with those kind of 3 that are found in the district, which is bungalow. So you could have a bungalow, can be 6. My only worry is you have 6 or 812 with a bungalow design, and having a 1012 standalone, then that's a little bit steeper. But this also, thing about McLaughlin is on one block, you could have 3 different styles, and your next door neighbor could be different than you. So it is, even though parts of the district may have one or more, type that's more common, all 3 architectural styles can be found on often.
So do you
in
think
the
you would
block.
say that in the wording? Would you say like these 3 are appropriate per review of the main structure? I don't know.
No, we would have to pick it, because what we can't do on a type 1 HRB policy level is have a qualitative analysis of the
Okay.
percentage of your neighbors. We have to choose ones that we feel comfortable that could be built in any scenario, in infill in
Right.
the district.
And I think that 8 is clear and objective.
That's the mean one, right?
That's a mean, right, it's a mean line, and it will meet the requirement for most of the housing types, right? So
Are you suggesting 8 only then, not down to
No,
612?
6
to 8.
Yeah, just like we have, 6 to 8. And then at 10 to 12, it's fine to come before the board and to talk about it, because then we get to look at the property they're putting it on. What is the original structure? What is the structure next door? And so we'll get a better view of that. We're asking staff to have to make that decision, right? And that's what we're trying to get away from.
And a counter to that, if it was just moving it from 8 to 10, and that saved $1,000 out of cost into creating affordable housing, an ADU, that maybe could be more adaptable. I think it's just making it, 8 is the average, 6 is the low, 10 is the high, but it just means that 10 is equally into play at no extra cost.
Yeah, but what if? So what if you have a bungalow, a bungalow on the property itself, and 6 feet away, you want to put something with a higher pitch? You're still under the 15, but you're not meeting. You're putting in a totally different style, right? Potentially a totally different style behind a 8 pitch. So that's the worry I have is.
This is where this design thing becomes very important, like originally.
Right, and that's why I say if it's 8, they can go up to 8, right? And that'll meet most of the requirements. But if they want to go to 10 or 12, then we get to look at the whole picture. And that's staff. We're not going to have staff looking at the whole picture.
Well, we can't.
Right, exactly. So we're trying to make this easy, and all we're doing now is we're adding more steps, and I want to try and avoid that.
I
Well,
think
that's-
saying, I think the current wording works. I'm just going to say that, 6 to 8 works.
All right, we're 2 and 2, so it's down to Gordon now.
Once you get into that higher territory, it looks a bit basic to me.
I start thinking about this in math terms, right? How much does it cost to build this building? Talking about $200,000 to $220,000 to build one of these things. Talking about $1,000 cost to find out whether or not you can do something that's outside the box of the given. I just don't see that there's a deterrent in paying that fee. It's not going to stop the building from being built. It's not going to change the cost effectiveness of the building. I just don't see it there. I think that we really need to keep a very strict guideline of this is what is 100% passable with no second thought about it. And if it's outside of that, come talk to us.
Yeah.
And it would be great, but it's a Pandora's box. And if we say, okay, this and this and this and this, we're going to have 17 talking points for the next 2 years instead of having a concise, agreed upon document to send out to people to get this thing done.
I would cancel out, go with you guys. I just want this thing to happen. So
I'm a math person, so I'm just like, I don't see it.
anything that can streamline to make this thing codified. So
I think that we did a lot of work over a lot of sessions, and there's been a lot of thought and a lot of really talented people that have come up with this.
Well, I would let's make this happen then.
And giving that leeway would not only mean that it could potentially be more appropriate to the primary structure, but also, I think that it would just be, I just think that it would, the way it's written right now, I think makes most sense to the architectural styles of the neighborhoods. And then it prevents redundancy, like we were talking about. It could open it up to it being, each little structure being a little bit different from the others and not just
Absolutely.
this, consistent little ADU everywhere. And so, yeah.
But let's have pictures.
I will try. I can't draw them myself, so that what I don't want is to put a picture of something that doesn't meet the standard. So that's why it may be a while till this
Okay.
gets replaced, just so you know.
That's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
You have an idea what we're looking for, though.
The one thing I also saw that is not in here is discussion of dormers, that they are allowed and they should be gable or shed. So I'll work on an additional bullet point for that for you next month. We'll add this to the end of the agenda. I mean, we'll look at red lines, but I'll kind of provide number of windows, linear feet, a bullet point about finished siding, trim, and decking, and then a bullet about dormers.
Yeah, especially at that pitch, I would imagine people will want to add
Yeah.
dormers.
So with dormers, one question comes up, maybe as you craft this percentage of the roof area, in other words, I guess that would maybe trigger a difference in measuring your median height, but let's say if your dormer is 3/4 area roof, that's a different appearance than,
Exactly. I've seen where people have dormered out
20%
the
of your
second
roof.
story.
Right.
Yeah, if you
They're
have
like, they've met it, 'cause there's-
612
I would think like width is,
with
yeah,
a big
big.
wide
Which is
612
not-
dormer on it.
Yeah.
it's
so
not
we
terribly uncommon with bungalow style, really, to have
Very
a
much.
fairly
Right.
big shed dormer.
But they are shallow.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let me take a look to make sure, really what the design is to look at is the worst case scenario, which how do we put a minimum or maximum, dimensional standard so we don't get the person who tries to build two giant
Way out of
dormers on
proportion.
both sides of the roof
Right.
to fake out a second story.
Yeah.
And then they're not proportional. So I'll look into how to write a section that just, it's not too strict and it's not too loose, but it ensures we don't have extreme dormers.
Yeah.
Is it as simple as doing a square footage footprint of the dormer to the area?
Could do that. I was thinking more of linear things, of
Gotcha.
separation, like having, I mean, I know bungalows can go far out, but sometimes even just requiring, they can only be, half or
I would think like
two-thirds,
1 to 2 dormers
And you
of a
need-
certain width.
And you need to have a certain percentage on both sides of the dormer of the roof, Because these are so small, I don't know if I want to do feet. I'd rather do kind of percentages,
Yep.
Yeah,
because then they can be scaled.
yep. I think it has to be percentages.
Width and depth?
Yeah, kind of,
Width and depth would be my concern, and then I don't love the idea of a gabled dormer either.
You didn't want to keep
Keep it to a
sheds.
shed, yeah.
The consultant, when she showed a picture of an ADU or in a garage, that, I said, wow, that's really pretty.
yeah,
And she said she grabbed it out of something, but it had a shed
yeah.
roof on one side of the
Sure.
dorm.
But you could have a side gable.
And
I
it
mean, you
was,
could have
it was
you could
very
have
attractive.
It was also
a
taller
gabled
than
dormer
15
when
feet.
you have.
What?
It was also taller than
Yeah.
15 feet, which
A
is
front-facing
one of
gable.
the concerns.
Well, and the other thing is that we prohibited hopper windows and things like that too, so it's gonna have to be a gabled window, or not a gabled window, a dormer window that is potentially operable some way?
Well,
Well,
Question mark?
then there's some coding to
Right.
deal with that.
I
So
don't
Well-
know the coding for that, so that's
Well,
all
and if
my
that's
question mark.
in it. Yeah, I mean, that's why a gabled dormer may provide the egress you need
yeah,
for a
With the-
sleeping
with
area,
our- yeah,
whereas
with
the
our-
shed is going to be harder.
yeah.
You would have to put it on the side wall, like up at the very top, which is easy when you have a 1.5-story house, but harder when you have a smaller.
It's interesting to think about to look at a set of plans and see how the height restrictions that we have and having a dormer with fire restrictions on the egress on the window is gonna play out. And the height of the window from the floor there's gonna be some interesting stuff to look
Yeah,
at there.
egress windows will be a little out of proportion large in some cases.
Absolutely,
You just
yeah.
can't get around that.
Or different, or,
Yeah.
there's gonna be some thing that's gonna have to be dealt with there.
And I suppose a comment like about no trapezoid windows or something like that, would that be,
Well, we talked about there could be 1/1 or fixed square rectangle with awning casement or fixed. So you kind of you get your 1/1s or you get your small,
okay,
square
yeah, right, yeah,
windows. That can either
Yeah.
be,
got it.
No
got it, got
half
it,
moons,
got it.
no.
no half moons, yeah, not allowed.
And still all the window verbiage that we decided on with the trim and the
Yeah.
projection and all that stuff would have applied to the dormer
To the
window
policy,
as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But the interesting question is, and maybe I can have a conversation between now and next meeting with our building official of like, okay, talk to me about how we're going to be doing egress
Yeah,
on it. If we did have an enclosed bedroom upstairs, rather than just like a lofty area.
it's something that
That's
I run
different.
into with bungalows stuff a lot, where we just have an issue with height and scale
Yeah.
and dealing with egress, and it comes up often enough that it's the first thing I think about.
Yeah, and we have, there are, for new construction, there are 1/1 windows in gabled dormers that open up as a casement, so they're false 1/1s that work for egress. But that's a little bit, I just want to see if that can be scaled as to be proportional.
One quick question on exterior doors. It was mentioned horizontal panel doors. Is that, are vertical panels kind of not cool? In a historical sense, you do see vertical panel doors too. What was the thought on that?
I think it was more default because we know that full light, half light, and horizontal are compatible. The vertical panels kind of play out to lots of different designs, so I wasn't sure These
your
ones,
craftsman
these,
doors are often vertical
Vertical
panel,
panel with a one light.
you know,
That's-
so a
light.
bungalow, that would be a 2/3 light. Yeah, if then when, let me take a look at
You're talking
how to explain a
decorative
bungalow
vertical,
2/3
that's what
light.
she's talking about. Right, decorative where, if you're just horizontal, or if they're thin vertical, right? I mean, I have those.
Yeah, yeah.
But if they're three vertical that go up like a fan, right? I mean, that's not historic. That doesn't really fit the,
But you're talking about 3 vertical panels and a traditional like bungalow lintel kind of
Well, like-
2/3.
right.
like a typical craftsman door might be
Yeah.
2 vertical panels and a little shelf and 2
Yeah.
small windows over, something like that, which is
Yeah.
real standard. So I'm not sure we should restrict it to horizontal panel doors.
Let me highlight that as well and see if we can add how to bring in that bungalow
Yeah, it's
element.
gonna be interesting to find the wording to make
Yeah.
sure that we're.
Do all the doors we like, but don't do any of the doors we don't like.
Yeah, that's an ugly door. We don't want that. Take it to the
I will-
rebuilding center.
Ugly doors are real things.
Yeah. I have one on my house right now. God, I'm
Doors
dying.
are also very expensive,
They're very
Yeah.
expensive.
so
And they're
I
crazy.
think that's something we need to keep in mind.
I have to open it every day and I.
Well, when I say
Doors and
a
say,
half-light
okay,
door
what-
is one of the
you know, you
cheapest
wanna keep
options,
costs
and it
in
always is
line.
compatible.
Yeah. A lot of craftsmen are single panel though, too, and then they just have the lights.
Yeah, the 3 like
Yeah,
full
over the
single
6
panel,
light
yeah.
over top.
So let me do a better job explaining that section, and maybe we can tease out, here are all the ones that we default know we're fine, and then if it's not on that list.
Yeah.
great.
There's a couple little typos
Oh.
which will get cleaned up, but on roofs there, it says gale or shed dormers gable. That's just a typo.
Oh, where is that?
Right about the middle on the roofs.
Yeah, gale or shed.
Yeah. And then on the...
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, on roofs. And then on the sidebar there on the left, clear direction to property owners. It just says, it's the second paragraph.
Clear direction of property for smaller projects.
Historic Review Board adopted policies to provide clear direction to property for small projects, property owners.
Oh. Got it. Yeah, I was taking out language that didn't make
By the
sense for
time it
this one.
gets all
Yeah.
redlined, that stuff will get caught so anyways.
Yeah, thank you.
Sometimes.
Yeah. More stuff.
I could read something a million times, or you read the email a million times, and then you hit send, and as soon as you look at the email, you catch 3 typos.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly. I do it regularly.
Well, this is great. I will pass this on to Jude. Melissa will walk it through. I'll work through these items. I'll bring it back at the October meeting, and then we'll start on, I can tell you the 1740 overlay district. It's a little bit of a Pandora's box, which is why I went with this one first, because this is more clear direction. The existing code language has a definition for new construction, but the policy we've now created is really more like an itemized list. If you do the following things, one of the following things, you will be reviewed for new construction. So I'm just trying to make sure when you change one thing, that you follow all the strings and the threads for the rest of the document. So we'll get either all of it or some of it next month.
Your work is invaluable to us, and thank you.
I will
Yes,
bring
thank
up
you so much
one
for
thing
Sure.
that one of the commissioners brought up at our meeting was about the 50 square foot upper story decks. And they didn't want to limit that to 50 square feet. They thought that was too small.
But we went over this.
And
Sure did.
We beat
That's
this,
too bad.
this horse.
well, we talked it through, but it wasn't a happy ending for that, so.
Yeah, I think it is hard, this board went through month after month, and whenever you have an entity that just slowly negotiates and works through something, and you're so proud of it, and you present it to somebody else who didn't do that, and they weren't privy to all that background
discussions.
conversation, but I think that as the board presents again, maybe, keep reiterating all kind of the reasons why, the thought process why.
Yeah, and that's what we tried to do, but unfortunately, it didn't sell well, but that's okay. I just wanted to bring up, I don't think we need to change it. I'm not suggesting we do. I think we talked it through. I thought 50 square feet was fine for an upper story deck. I mean, we're not putting a party deck out back on so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. That was an issue that was brought up at the commission meeting, so.
As a property
Did they
owner
say-
with a second floor apartment, I have some people, I think about having adequate egress on a second floor. And I think that having a little, whatever it is, with a door is great. So it's not like we're asking for something big, it's just an important element to have.
Yeah. And we talked about, square footage components of that and, what it means in coding language and, all of it. I think that we're talking about really small buildings here too. You don't want to put a huge deck on a small building, so.
Well, that's what we tried to say. So,
All right.
okay.
So I'll be back next month with the revisions, and then we'll just kind of, hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have a package ready, and we'll just keep working through them. Okay.
Great.
So as the red lines for the compatible change document are fleshed out, I would still be an advocate on the freestanding accessory buildings to not have non-habitable designated for that. I don't see that it matters from a historic context. On the outside, if there's a car in there, or if it's an art studio,
Oh, yeah.
or
But
a,
it's not a dwelling. 'cause
or
this
it's
would
not
be
a dwelling unit,
Yeah.
that's, it has to, it doesn't meet the test of a dwelling unit. That would come under the
Yeah.
policy 13s, but it's a freestanding accessory structure that maybe would be a guest suite, or maybe would be an art studio, or a music room, or something like that, as opposed to non-habitable. That would be habitable
Yeah,
space.
I think the hard part is you could approve something as non-habitable, and then 5, 10 years go by, and then you want to do something with it, you're like, oh, I want an art studio, and you get your building permits, and then it's really hard to track. So you can track dwelling versus non-dwelling. We can track that well, because you got to pay fees
Yeah.
for dwelling. But going from non-habitable to habitable is really hard to track on our end for building permit, just so you know. So I think on the management side, that seems reasonable of talking about, this is that second part, right, where we upped the square footage for accessory buildings. And I think what Board Member Green is not differentiating between habitable and non-habitable, because that's a little bit of a slippery slope once you build it.
I guess I see the slippery slope on the other side of it, in that if somebody kind of wants an art studio or something like that and realizes they've got to go before the HRB, they're going to come in and say it's going to be a garage. And they'll get their permit for a garage, and then they're going to go ahead and sheetrock it and make an art studio out of it. There's no real enforcement provision to keep somebody from going on that slippery slope, even to, a guest suite or whatever, but I don't see that in my mind as a conflict from the aspect of, the historical impact, the building. You're looking at the outside of it. So this is an interior use, and I realize the code challenge there, but that aspect is there no matter what, that the usage can change, it's not a dwelling unit unless they put cooking facilities in there and do that, and if they bootleg that in there, that's on them. But I mean, that happens anyway. It just seems to me that it kind of primes a slippery slope. If they want finished space, they'll say, well, I don't want to go to the HRB. I'll just say it's a garage, it's a storage room, you know, and I'll finish it off later and I'll have my art studio, or I'll put a bedroom. I mean, they can put a bathroom in there. So that's the struggle that I have with it. In my mind, that it just should be a freestanding accessory building that meets the square footage, the height, and that other criteria, not really designate that it has to be non-habitable. But I mean, that's just kind of what occurs to me.
So is uninhabitable, by the term, mean no permit necessary? Or does it mean you can't put in water, you can't put in gas, you can't put in any of that? I mean,
Those are arbitrary, no, I mean, you can, if we can differentiate between a dwelling unit and a non-dwelling unit.
Right.
But if you have an accessory building that you want to kit out and bring utilities to, you can get the permit for that. So I in a sense do agree with Board Member Green, because it would be really hard to regulate and create an arbitrary line. And then anytime you create an arbitrary line that doesn't require a permit, you're just chasing code enforcement complaints that it's really hard to implement.
so habitable versus non-habitable could be dwelling versus non-dwelling?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, this is the dwelling unit, right? That's the 500, and then we have up to 3 something for accessory building, a non-dwelling unit accessory building. So one thing now with middle housing land division, there is incentive to create an actual dwelling unit and pay your fees because you can sell it as a separate, in the past you couldn't do that. But now you actually can sell that and as a separate lot, someone can buy it. And you can make money as a property owner. If you build an accessory building and put an art studio in it, or put a bedroom in it, and have, it's still part of your house. You can't sell that off. It's still part of your household.
Right. But that would be habitable space, correct? If you did an art studio?
Yeah, it's habitable space.
Yeah. So code-wise, I mean, you can put plumbing, you can put a bathroom in non-habitable space, correct?
This is where I don't want to be the building official, so maybe I can do some research and give it back. But from my understanding is, if you have an accessory building and you want to get a building permit to put in all the things you could put in your existing home, you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an extension of your dwelling unit. You've just
Right.
detached part of it. So
Right.
you can get all the building permits for the things you
Right.
need. What we differentiate is a full kitchen that has permanent cooking
Exactly.
facilities is our differentiation between
Exactly.
a new dwelling unit. At that point, you do need to pay system
Yeah.
development fees, and it's considered a separate dwelling unit,
Right.
separate from the other household.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that in my mind speaks to removing the language non-habitable. But it can't be a dwelling space. Obviously, if somebody comes in with a plan with a kitchen, you say this is a dwelling space. This does not fall in the category of an accessory.
Yeah, and they need to meet HRB 13 and pay the fees.
Yeah, I mean, I brought a kitchen in because I do canning, and I need it for canning. I mean, there's a million reasons.
Yeah, we don't-
I rather than drop
we
it
don't allow
off.
it.
Yeah, and rather than drop that off, maybe after you talk to the building official, maybe
Yeah.
then we can craft some better language.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, you make good sense. It's just.
Yeah, I just.
I'm worried about.
I think that in my mind, you almost create a larger scenario where somebody's going to do something after the fact if they claim it as non-habitable, so they don't have to get a HRB review and then just figure, well, I'm just going to finish it off afterward.
I'm in agreement with you.
And So why have that factored in there, I guess, but
I
anyway.
think
Okay.
I think we've got it taken care of. We know what a dwelling unit should have a kitchen.
Well,
Yeah.
dwelling unit is distinctly different.
So
yeah.
at the October meeting, I will have the updated guidelines for accessory buildings.
Yeah.
And I will have the new wording in and can provide your red lines to me
Yeah.
at that
Great.
point.
That's perfect. I like it.
All right.
Okay,
All right, so
Anything else?
next item, are you guys ready?
we're ready. Next item.
Okay, so the Historic Review Board has moved their work plan to match the biennium budget of the city and the city commission's goals. So we finished up the last biennium, and I have attached kind of the final annotated work plan. And so I think the conversation over the next month or two is, what items from this work plan do you want to move forward to the next 2025, 2027 work plan? And what items have been completed and won't be on next work plan? I did, if you click on the staff report of this agenda item, I did identify things that the certified local government grant can pay for, and apologize, when the agenda was posted, the formatting went wonky, but if you can read down, you'll see items that our grant can do. It's education. So the grant paid last time for the homeowners packets. We sent one to every homeowner, so that was a little bit more money. We printed out new copies and we mailed them all. The Kristen Miner's contract for the window policy and the compatible change memo. So that's what paid for the work plan items from the last CLG grant. CLG grant can be historic preservation education, but not interpretive signs. So think built environment, historically designated structures. They can pay for that. What Mayor McGriff was talking about, we have actually done in previous CLG grants. We actually put together 3 National Register nominations for properties downtown. And actually, I'm sorry, we did 3 nominations. We paid for the elevator National Register nomination, the promenade, and then we put one for a property downtown for them to get on the National Register. And at the end, they actually pulled it because it was not in their best interest as the property owner, but the city did pay for the National Register listing document for that. So that is something that the board could do if there is a property owner downtown who wants to be on the National Register. The CLG grant could pay for that nomination, but you need property owners' consent to be on the National Register. So it would have to be a conversation. So not knowing that there is anybody downtown, it's hard to pre-plan that, but if anybody does know someone who wants that, the grant could pay for that. The grant can always pay for surveys. We've done a lot of surveys over the years. I don't know if we necessarily have a dire need for updated surveys, but survey always works. Education, so the grant can pay for you to go to conferences. So if there's national conferences or regional conferences that you think is important for some of the board members to go to, or some of the staff to go to, the grant can pay for that.
Well, I think we rely on you to let us know what that is, what's coming up, and really.
Yeah, there is a local one, and I think I passed it on, but it's the State Historic Preservation Office puts together kind of a free one on a weekday. It's usually in the valley somewhere, and I'll take a look. I think it's in November during a weekday, and that's free. You can come on down. The things like the National Trust, it's usually a couple $100 for the registration, and then the hotel and the flights. So that's, that gets, what do you want to spend your money on?
Yeah.
And how many go, and who gets to go, and do we want to subsidize the fee, but not that's that conversation of, we'll have about $10,000, $12,000 of the grant, and we have about a $5,000 to $8,000 match. So depends on the year and what's in our biennial budget. I believe right now we have a $5,000 match, so think about like a $15,000 or $17,000 project, or things that
happy
add
to-
up to that.
I'm happy to, I mean, I look at preservation conferences a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to take that off your plate and recommend any.
Yeah, and then the Preservation Alliance has their preservation
Right.
conferences, so.
And even smaller, the National Preservation Institute offers all kinds of trainings, and you can take them online. You know, usually they're about $100.
Yeah,
So
so if,
it's-
if education is something you want to work on this next biennium, that can be, I mean, really what I do, I'll be applying for the CLG grant in the spring, and so I'll look at the adopted, work plan and and enter, just really enter in the eligible projects. So, if, Board Member Fulkerson, if you, between now and next meeting, maybe want to come up with some ideas, we can add that. You're not guaranteed, but, look for individual board member educational opportunities, either at, conferences or 1 day, or, 1 day, 2 day trainings.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, I thought it was invaluable, the meeting we had with folks from Denver. I
Yeah.
thought that was excellent.
And the reason we did that is we had to pivot with our grant funds because of COVID, and we were running out of time. And so
Yeah.
that was offered as an idea, and so, we could do that again. We could we could send you to the preservation conference, or some of you, so we can look into opportunities. And the grant, it doesn't need to be decided now, but if education is your theme, we can really look through that.
Well, I think it's beneficial. I think if we could look at the things that would benefit, and I'll say this to you, but the things that would benefit us as a local group more than national
It
group would
would
be
be-
great.
Yeah,
I
I'm
see
still
stuff
always
happening
learning,
all
too.
over
I
the-
mean-
All over the state in historic districts, and I would love to see, learn more about how they've been able to pull off some of their programming in different cities and different places, just in the state of Oregon.
Right.
Where we see something that's winning, and something that they're doing that really creates beautiful image, but I think it also attracts business and money
Yeah.
because they do it right.
One thing I also recommend, which we can absolutely pay for, is to attend the Main Street Conference.
Right.
Even the local one. One nice thing about Main Street conferences, there's a lot of excitement and energy because it's very business owner oriented.
Yeah.
It's different than it's a different vibe than Preservation Conference. I've been to both. I've been to Main Street and the Preservation. There's energy at the Main Street Conference, but that happens.
Community-based.
Yeah, it's more
like-
community-based. You get more nuggets, I found, in the Main Street one. But that can be added, and that'll happen usually in the spring on the Oregon level.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, so if you actually, Julie, want to send me kind of what you find, I can plug this in to a revised. The 1740 code revisions will still be on here because we'll need to spend the next year going through the implementation process. So I will update 1740 code revisions for the compatible change and just identify what this next year work plan for that item is. Let's see, what's next? So the number 5 is improving the historic review board approval process. That's the window work session, so that one is done, so we can remove number 5. Number 6 is our ongoing work to ensure that the conditions of approval are implemented, and it's always an ongoing collaborative struggle, I guess. We've done some good work. We have found ways to paste all the conditions of approval in red on the adopted plan, on the stamp plan, so the contractor has them. Because a lot of times the property owner and the applicant doesn't do a good job getting that. We also have a 2-page form that has each condition and applicant's response that we require them to respond to when they turn in their building permit. So they are actively responding to how they think they meet all the conditions, so that's helpful. Because if they write a really bad answer, then we're like, oh, no, you actually didn't. And your answer clearly shows that you have not implemented that. So those are the two items we are doing, but I'm happy to keep that on and we can keep updating you. We're going to be moving.
I would like to do it because just to get updates like that, I
Yeah.
had no idea that was going on, so.
Yeah, and then we're moving towards a total e-review soon. It's a long, it sounds easy, but moving to just open studio e-reviews actually is taking longer than we thought, but that's our goal this year. So we may also, with that process, have to change some of how we do things because we'll be in a all digital commenting e-review. So right now we just stamp things on PDF, but this will be a different studio session.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to keep that in and keep doing those updates. HRB Policy 12 solar panels, is there any interest in keeping that and revisiting or waiting for the next biennium? It seemed pretty strong that you were
Well,
happy
I think
with.
we talked about, when we approved when we talked about, that we were going to do it for a period of time and then come back and review and see how it was working out. So if we don't leave it on, well, I think we should probably just leave it on and
Okay.
maybe not worry about updating it or anything until later in the next year, so we can at least talk about it and see how things are going.
Okay, I can maybe add it for like the end of the biennium to have that conversation. So kind of spring 27.
Yeah, we really haven't had much so far.
Yeah, that's the problem. We just haven't had enough that
I
we can
know.
really talk about it, but.
All right, so the public outreach number 8. So we continue to send new homeowners their packets when we get notice from the tax assessor that a property has changed hands. So we get that quarterly, we get a little Excel spreadsheet from our GIS department. And I just did it actually last week. You put together, it's usually like 8 to 10 properties and you mail those out. So we'll always be doing that. We have done the 500 this last winter. The question is, that did pay for the CLG grant. Do you want to wait 2 more years to the next, not this next CLG grant, but one more? Do you want to do that again in a year to send it again to every property owner? It's really your call. It costs about maybe $2 to mail each packet, and then we had to print it. So, it was probably $1,000 all total to do that.
When when policy 13 gets nailed down, is that something that's going to go out to everyone? Is that
It
something
could.
that's going to be included in new homeowner packets? or-
It will include the new homeowner packet. The question is, do you want to send, we could we could use the CLG grant and we have a nice packet. We created a brochure about 10 years ago, and then we have inserts. So the HRB policies are just a stapled insert.
Got it.
So we'll have a new stapled insert with HRB 13, but we could also just mail it out as individually, we could do a letter, we could have a letter with the new policy.
Yeah.
So that's something we could choose in public outreach, is just to do an outreach to the new code changes once they're adopted and the new HRB policies,
Yeah.
rather than the standard homeowner packet.
There's going to be a tourism-oriented walking and talkings, going through Mountain View Cemetery and the original people that are up there that, and would be neat to tie in this tour with houses and people so we could connect where they lived in Oregon City, or what they were kind of responsible for. And it's being put on the 1st of October, and it's a major event.
Right now?
For tourism for Oregon City. But it would be neat to be able to tie all of, the Hedges, I got the Hedges, David Hedges, he's going to be part of enacting the story about Hedges' family in Kanema. But it would be nice if we start, all of the people that they're going to be talking about, which were the major players in the 1850 to 1890 timeframe of Oregon City, and to kind of, what did they do at a visual? And this comes back like, I do like visuals.
Well, this is a biennium for the next 2 years, and so anything like that would have to be grant funded. I mean,
Right.
so, and just to remind everybody, even though I'm a historian and I love history and I love interpretive history, CLG grants are not for interpretive history. They are for the built environment, and it's just the reality of
Sure.
the pass-through of the money. So I've tried interpretive signage, CLG won't pay for that. Materials, unless you're talking about the house, you know, the so-and-so's house, you can do that. But as it gets into more of the life of so-and-so, that leaves what CLG can pay for. And that's just where it comes from, a certain funding source, which is a built
Well, and that's kind of
environment.
outside our
Yeah,
deal anyway here, right? So, I mean, we're here more talking about regulatory requirements and that type of thing, and it's a great idea. I think that's something like a neighborhood association could put together. They can get some funding to do it. That'd be great. But anyway, the other thing I thought if we do, if we're gonna send out 13, the other nice thing we could do is do a nice article in the Trail News about it.
yeah.
And update everybody on, because I mean, you know, people do read it. And we really haven't done anything with that in the past. Did we do any, we talked about doing some articles for the Trail
We
News.
have some articles, we often do the preservation grants, so we'll do that often in the Trail News. And then we'll do just basic information, like, so you're a historic owner, go find HRB policies. We've done the kind of how do I, but not anything more than that piece of, you know, really things that are on our website and getting people there and writing an article about what's available as a resource.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me we've got, you know, you open it up and you got 12 pages of the library and 9 pages of the Pioneer Center, and there's like 2 articles for anybody else. And it just seems like there's, you know, it might benefit us. I don't know. I'd have to just think it through about what kind of things we could talk about. But I think it's important. People ask about it all the time, and especially in a neighborhood like Kenema and McLaughlin, you know, they're talking about history all the time and the homes and that type of thing. Might be interesting. I don't know.
All right, so what I have for public outreach is a separate mailing for when compatible change is adopted in the policies. So like, we can write a letter, we can send the new policies, and then just a general letter, like the rest is online, and we can send that out as, you know, it's gonna be about 500 and so properties, but we can send, you know, that that will probably be sometime next fall.
Yeah, we should include that in our discussion with the commission too,
Yeah.
to tell them we're going to do that.
And then for Trails News, I'll just, you know, try to do more news articles every year. And I can, over the years, for folks that are new, we try to put this up a couple, maybe once or twice a year to kind of update where we are, and then we can add new sub-bullets, but we can track, you know, what kind of articles have been done over the last certain amount of Trail News. So I can add that. Let's see, I don't think we'll be, unless you want to, we won't be doing the historic homeowner packet for everybody this biennium. We can probably wait to the following biennium, but anybody new will get the homeowner packet.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
seems reasonable.
Okay. And then for public outreach, number 9, we'll always have the Preservation Month and Ruth Powers Award. That's a standing option, so I'll add that. So what I'm hearing from the board is education, education, education. So that is absolutely something we can build into our CLG grant. Just so you know, though, we apply for it in the spring. We usually get it approved in the summer, and we can start using funds in the fall. So it would be looking at things kind of in the fall of 26 and spring of 27 that we can spend grant money on.
Well, we kind of talked about using the CLG grant for an updated survey at some point of Is that something that's on the,
I haven't heard, so that's something that the board can talk about.
we talked about it briefly with Kristen when she was here about the need for an updated survey because it hadn't been done since, yeah,
2002.
2000 or
2002.
something.
So that would be, I don't think we can do both. I mean,
Right, that'd be a big ask.
That's a big, so one thing to think about is we would need more money in the city commission's biennium budget to match. So what we could do as a work item is prep for a McLaughlin resurvey for status update in the, next biennium, so in 2 more years, but to make sure we have the right amount of matching grant money.
Okay.
We only have, the problem is if there's only $17,000, that's not
Right,
going to pay for the
it'd be at least
resurvey.
50.
It'd be about
It's an
50,000.
extremely urgent matter, because if you're talking the next biennium, I mean, we're getting into
I know.
25, 30 years of,
But we don't have the
Yeah.
money for this.
of course, but
Yeah.
I think it's something that as we work on, like you're saying, we work on it and get our proposal together for city council and kind of focus on that, because that's,
It lays the groundwork certainly for a lot of these issues that are coming up and, to have that, even just a statement in periods of significance and all the things that sort of become hairy during these meetings, that would be really helpful, I think. But it is expensive, so.
Yeah. I know, the reason why I paused was that was the first year I worked in Oregon City. I actually inherited the previous planner's CLG grant, and the person that was hired, it was such a big undertaking that they actually used U of O students to help,
Yeah, I
to
remember you
make
saying that, yeah.
the project affordable, because there was 1,000 tax lots.
It's a big,
Yeah.
so, I mean, not even 50, if you say 1,000, so.
There's 1,000 tax lots, so.
lots, but not
I don't-
necessarily built structures on them, so.
There may be one on each one. Yeah, but I would say there's a structure in every tax lot.
So that's, I mean, yeah, you're looking at probably $100,000 in a survey. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, so what I can do is I can add a new item, which is just researching approach to resurveying McLaughlin, or provide an update and the funding mechanisms. So like this is our research biennium, and that's about, then at least if there's a big ask, we know what we're asking and we know why, and we know where we can get, if we can get money beyond the CLG. If we can only get money at the CLG, then we need to ask almost for the 100% match,
An important thing to
And then
have
what,
that in.
then what do you get for it, right? So that's
Yeah.
some of that conversation.
Sooner we put it on our work plan, the more we can start talking it up with the
Yeah.
commission too.
Yeah, so I'll add that as a new work plan item.
If I were retired, I'd do it for free for you all, but.
Okay.
No, don't ever do that.
Okay, I'll provide these updates at the next meeting, and when the board is ready, you can adopt it. It's, at some point, you can adopt it, and then really, we'll use this as our working work plan, and amend it as needed over the next 2 years.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you all.
So we have communications.
I have 2 exciting items. Kelly Hart has accepted the Community Development Director role. She's coming up from Lebanon, and her first day is October 2nd, I believe. So we're really excited to have a new Community Development Director, Kelly Hart. There's a great article, I think, on the main page of our website if you want to read it. And then we've posted the administrative assistant position. It's currently open. I don't know when it closes. So if you know someone who might be interested, it's really fascinating and kind of, if you like challenge, if you like talking to folks, we're really nice to work with. We're really collaborative. We work with building and planning, and it's a little office management, a little administrative assistant, get to help run the meeting, so it's a little bit of everything. It's good pay. So anybody who's interested, pass it on. It should be closing soonish. I know it posted like last week, so it's only probably open for another week or two.
Legally, are we allowed to, because I saw that you shared that on LinkedIn, am I
Yeah.
allowed to reshare that?
Oh,
Is that-
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just an open position. We want as many people to apply
okay.
who wants to.
I'm looking for the same position at my company, so just go ahead and say. Hey,
You're gonna make a LinkedIn.
You can have the leftovers.
So
Okay.
that's what I have.
All right, very good. Then if that is it, any questions or any comments from the board?
I do have a question, and I'll try to keep it brief. It's a policy question. I'm new, I'm not familiar. We've touched base on it before in discussions, and I'll try to keep it vague. But we had an applicant for tonight that dropped off. Looking at the information, knowing the property, knowing the situation with the property, what would keep someone from proposing to do a project such as that and then change it, de-designate it in a property, and all of a sudden it's no longer in our purview, and then that building just gets torn down and they build.
Right, well, it wasn't
what-
de-designated, it never was designated.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that's, I totally understand the
Yeah.
circumstances of that, and that's why it was like, hey, you don't even need to do this. However, had that gone through to the Historic Review Board, we'd be saying, hey, you've got a building XYZ, you want to do this addition to make it into a dwelling space, and now it is de-designated, and now, can you not just do whatever you want with it?
Yeah, so there's some options, and we've done that. We've approached reduction in the size of landmarks. That's probably how I would interpret it for that application, but many of them were oftentimes a landmark may have just had extra land that's not necessarily really associated with the resource. I mean, we have two territorial Ainge home, the Captain Ainsworth House and the McCarver House, which were on acres in the middle of the city. And so they went through a subdivision process. They reduced the size of the landmark to a lot in a subdivision, and the rest of the subdivision got developed. But there was a conversation of how big does the lot need to be to allow this house to retain its sense of space. We had a property in Park Place a couple years ago that once again was on a larger parcel of land. The house was actually on the far edge of the corner, almost at the property line at a corner lot, and there was just a lot of extra land. So the conversation of if the landmark's reduced and we allow kind of just new development to happen, what should the size of the landmark be? We have done it where we said with the landmark on Malala Avenue, there was a duplex that was put in the corner lot of a landmark on Malala Avenue. And we said, well, we'll only reduce the landmark once your project is approved and built. So we know that what was built there is compatible. So that could be a condition where you say that landmark is reduced upon the certificate of occupancy of the proposed new construction.
But even at that point, with your example of Malala and a duplex, there's a significant investment into the project. So the idea that it would change.
No, I think the idea is more like it doesn't get built, and then we don't reduce the landmark until we know the project is built.
But in the example that we could have been looking at, the investment into building what would have been approved would have been pretty insignificant. So then we would have approved the reduction of the landmark. And at that point, you could potentially just do whatever you want with that property, correct?
Right, and so the question is, each landmark has its own unique situation.
Yeah.
So there was some where the lot was just so big,
Yeah.
it just made sense to find a size for the landmark and let the rest of the land develop to
The way it's gonna go.
The
Right.
landmark might be a landmark because of its land.
Right.
You
And
know,
it's-
because of its view shed, because of its.
Right, and
you
so
know,
each one, from the McCarver was a perfect example. That was where, before we had demolition denial. And so it was negotiation to keep this 1850s house. It was kept at a larger lot. And then the site was actually upzoned to allow really the same amount of lots as it would have gotten. So that was the negotiation. There was some design aesthetics for the abutting resources, but that was about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, each lot is its own solution, how the board wants to do it.
I know that we discussed the property on Lynn Ave with the ramp on the side of the building that was added afterwards. It was already denied. It was, then you get occupancy and then they go, okay, well now we don't have to talk to you anymore. We're just going to do it. And so I was just trying to wrap my head around it the last week or so, looking at what was coming up that didn't happen. Like, what can we do about that? Is there anything that can be done about that? Is there, and it's
You
like,
could put any conditions you feel is appropriate in the reduction of the landmark.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, at some point, the way I always see it, which is the certificate of occupancy, is it's a massing issue. And, once that duplex got built, it's just the board's not going to go review when they change a door, or it's so substantially built that there's probably not a lot of additions that could be put onto it. And so at some point you have to walk away. But if there's concern, like for the one tonight, if there was extra land, then maybe this wasn't the right time to de-designate, maybe only when the whole lot was fully built out. Or maybe the reduction only is allowed when development is within X feet of the boundary. It really changes. We had a landmark where there was a big apartment complex that was built on this multi-acre lot. And the house turned into like the amenity building for the apartment complex. And they reviewed it, and then they basically put a box around it and said, it's only when development, if any buildings are proposed inside this box that we care in the future, because we've already kind of made sure there's enough landscaping buffer. So, you put the conditions you need to feel comfortable.
Okay, just wondering. I was trying to work through it in my head and suss it through, and I'm just going, well, I had a vision of what could be being done potentially, and I went, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and, what would stop anybody from doing anything, so
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea to not change the designation until it's been done, right?
Yeah.
And then if it needs to be changed, change.
Yeah,
But I think it could be different everyone, but that makes sense to me.
yeah.
Keeps
I just,
things
it's
honest.
a thing it's all on what Paul was saying about what stops someone from putting a kitchen in and doing this stuff, and it's just in building, I'd see it all the time, where, I just left a job today somewhere that had a ductwork hidden behind some TNG and gas and electric in a wall behind some drywall. I mean, it's all there. We know it's there. It's gonna go in, but they're gonna get through their permitting before, any of it comes back out. So it's just, I see it and I go, okay,
Yeah, you can only do so much, right? Okay, if that is it, any other comments, then we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you very much.